daily newspaper analysis, which is brought to you by LawSikho. Today, we have a very interesting article that we have picked from the Indian Express. The title of this article is The Working Woman Puzzle. This article talks about, as the name itself is saying, that what is the plight or what is the dilemma that the working women in India are into. Sometimes they have to choose between their families, their children, and their jobs. So, is this choice justified, or do we have some other viable options available for our working women or not? Will be discussed in this article. The second one we have is the news update column, wherein we'll be discussing about the important days, awards, appointments, etc., that are very important for our prelims exam. And thirdly, we have is the legal news system, wherein we'll be discussing the most important and latest judgments of the day. Let's start our discussion with the article of the day, which talks about the women puzzle, that the working women puzzle, or the working women, the dilemma that they face. So the article says that in order to bring in sustained women in the working fold, providing education is not enough. It says that without supportive infrastructure, women will be forced to leave the workforce, as indicated in a survey carried by Deloitte. This is a very, a basic question that we can understand just with a simple analogy. Now let's just imagine with me that we have prepared amazing, delicious food for someone. The food is all ready, it is all set up on the dining table to be consumed. But just imagine that this food can only be looked at and it can't really be consumed, or even if it can be consumed by that person, he won't be able to digest the same. Do you think that this is a justified situation, or do you think that the real purpose of making that food in the first place will be sufficed? Well, of course not, right? Similar is a situation with our women as well. When at the first phase, we try to inculcate more and more education amongst the girl child, that is, through schemes like Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, wherein we say that the girl education is of utmost importance. Yes, of course it is. But just imagine that what is the practical use of that education amongst the women if they cannot encash it through some viable options of employment. Similar is the situation that is pertaining in the Indian society right now, that even though the women who are educated, they are still not able to work at most of their capabilities because of so many societal hurdles, so many family or personal hurdles that they have to face. That is why it says that, of course, at the first step, it is important that we provide education to the women. That is definitely the first step towards improving the situation of women in the society. But the second most important supplementary option that we have is of supportive infrastructure. For example, we have the provisions of the maternity benefit, the maternity leave for the women. We have the options of having crash in the the offices, in the workplace, where the women can keep their children safe. They can go and feed their children whenever required. So these are the kinds of supportive infrastructure, or proper facilities for transportation, safe environment for the women to work, and so many other such glass ceiling breakers that we need to have in our workforce system, so that the women are not just given the right things to be employable, but once they become employed, they're also able to continue such employment. Now this is due to a coupling of reasons like burnout, work-life balance, and the reeling effect of a full-blown pandemic for the 2 years. As you can see in this picture as well, that there is this woman who is just, maybe rushing towards her job. And there are so many problems that she's facing, not just at the workplace, but at her family as well. For example, in the workplace, we have issues like gender bias, of course, in terms of opportunity, in terms of promotion, in terms of payment of wages as well. Then maternity leave, that is also insufficient at times, mental and physical harassment because of a gender, unequal pay, leadership, etc. And these are so many problems that she's facing at the workplace. Whereas in the family also, the situation is not as smooth as we imagine it to be. There are a lot of family duties towards the husband, towards the in-laws, children, etc. Time balance is a problem, that if she's working too late, it is not acceptable by the families many times. Mother responsibility, business towards the trainings that she has to go out, and then who will take care of the house when she is not available, health, fitness, etc. So you can see that there are a lot of issues that she has to juggle amongst. Let's see what this article further says, that what are the roots of this particular problem. So this says that the low and declining workforce can be also demonstrated from another angle, that is decisions of non-working women. That what are the decisions, or how the non-working women take themselves to be, or how important they consider their services to be. You must have heard that recently Tamil Nadu, government was thinking to propose that the non-working women or the housewives should also be paid for the labor that they do, or the taking care of the house that they do, and this should also be encashed. In a way, it means that we should not undermine the efforts that are taken by the housewives or the women who stay back at home and take care of children and their home. So data suggests that non-working women do wish to work part-time. So the women who are still not working, they are still willing to take any work that is part-time so that they can balance properly between their work life and their personal life as well. Now, this is primarily due to the taking care of children, and either when they're young or when they're leaving school to enter college, they prefer these kind of women. They prefer, the part-time works for that matter. Now, further, the help from rest of the family extended towards working women is negligible, causing a steep decline in the mid-40 workforce. On this, we've already discussed that the family support is very, very essential, specifically the support coming from the spouse, that is the husband, is very important because, of course, children are not a one parent's responsibility. It is their responsibility of both the parents. So if at all the mother is not available to take care of the children, why can't the father or the in-laws take care of them? Now, the list of factors are firstly rigid workplace demands because they have some deadlines that are to be met, and of course, many a times no flexibility is believed over here. Secondly, lack of family and social support, as we had just discussed, and personal responsibility of participating in the upbringing of the children. So the way forward, as we were also discussing here, guys, when we talk about the personal responsibility, many a times women think that it is wholly and solely their personal responsibilities, being the mothers of the children, to take care of the children. But we as women, we should realize that it is not just our responsibility. We have another spouse, we have another person, the parent, the father of the children, who is equally responsible for taking care of the children. Now, the way forward here is that the survey has shown that educated and working women often find ways of sustainable income, and this often becomes hectic for the women managing a child and jobs in the two fronts. However, working spells are followed by long periods of job hunting and unemployment, which further increases the friction of unemployment amongst the women. Now, such work is tremendously important for the society and economy, but goes unrecorded because of it being either voluntary or too little to be elaborately recorded, as we just talked about the contribution that the non-working, as in the women who work, are taking the household chores. So in that situation, we're not really accounting for the labor. And if at all we would calculate the economic amount of all these things that our mothers do for us, cooking the food, taking care of the house, cleaning stuff, washing our clothes, so many things, if at all we were to pay for all of this, it would actually rip about our pockets. So the proper infrastructure will make sure that women in the workforce will not have to choose between work and family, and that they can do both equally, well, and equally proficiently. Now, here is a kind of a correction from previous days' newspaper analysis. There seems to be kind of confusion. So, the previous day's article that talked about the position of governor under the Constitution stated that Article 154, Clause 1 mandates that the governor shall listen to the cabinet ministry before acting. So, the referred Article 154, Clause 1, please note, in the Indian Constitution states that the governor is the executive head of the state. However, as a point of clarification, please note that it is Article 163 that states that the Chief Minister, along with the Cabinet Ministers, will advise the governor in exercise of its functions, unless the same is an exercise of his constitutional duty. So please clarify on this that Article 154 provides that there shall be a governor who shall be the executive head of the state, and 163 provides that he shall act on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. So please get this corrigendum and do not be confused meanwhile you're taking this question in your exam. Let's move further with the news updates. Firstly, ISRO plans mission to Venus by 2024. So ISRO, that is the Indian Space Research Organization, is expecting the December 2024 window for launch, with orbital maneuvers planned for the following year, when the Earth and the Venus would be so aligned that the spacecraft could be put in the neighboring planet's orbit using a minimum amount of propellant, which means that the Venus would be closest to the Earth during this time of the year. Secondly, highest sex ratio at birth has been recorded in Ladakh. So highest sex ratio at birth based on registered events has been reported by Ladakh, that is 1104, followed by Arunachal Pradesh, Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Tripura and Kerala. The report has been released by Registrar General of India. Sex ratio is a ratio recorded of males to females in a population. Thirdly, World Pulmonary Hypertension Day. Every year on May 5th, pulmonary hypertension organizations and groups around the world participate in the World Pulmonary Hypertension Day activities to raise awareness of this frequently under and misdiagnosed disease and celebrate the lives of people through living with the pulmonary hypertension. So please just remember that this is important for us to know, that the day for celebrating or for recognizing the World Pulmonary Hypertension Day is May 5th, and Pulmonary Hypertension Day is related to lungs. Fourthly, RBI hikes policy repo rate by 40% basis points, bringing an end to the low interest rate regime. The Reserve Bank of India jacked up the repo rate, the main policy rate, by 40 basis points to 4.40%, and the cash reserve ratio by 50 basis points to 4.50% to bring down the elevated inflation and tackle the impact of geopolitical tensions. Please note here that by repo rate, we mean the interest rate at which the Reserve Bank of India gives money or provides cash to the various commercial or other scheduled banks of the country. So that is basically an interest rate only, but because it has been given by the RBI to the other banks, it is called as the repo rate. Also, please note that by cash reserve ratio, we mean that there is a stipulated amount of cash that needs to be maintained by the banks, and it has to be kept by the banks as a reserve with the Reserve Bank of India, in order to make sure that the banks do not go insolvent and they do not go bankrupt. And in this situation, it has to be made sure that the financial stability is maintained in the entire country. So that is considered to be as the cash reserve ratio, which is maintained by the Reserve Bank of India in form of cash coming from such banks. Next, second India Nordic Summit. So the Prime Minister of Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Sweden, India, and Norway participated in the summit held at Copenhagen in Denmark. So the summit provided an opportunity to firstly review the progress of the India-Nordic relations. Please understand that when we're talking about the Nordic, we refer to these countries. And which are these countries? Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Sweden, and Norway. So these are all called as Nordic countries. So these relations since the first India-Nordic summit that was held in 2018 in Stockholm. The Prime Ministers pledged to continue and to deepen the cooperation. They also focused on discussion on key issues related to international peace and security. Also, the discussions were held on multilateral cooperation in the field of post-pandemic economic recovery, climate change, sustainable development, innovation, digitalization, and green and clean growth. Please look out in the map that these are the Nordic countries that we were just talking about. So we have Iceland, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Finland. So all of these are very, very chilled and cold countries, and all are a part of Europe. Let's see what do we have for the legal news today. Firstly, Madhya Pradesh High Court stays state policy to increase the OBC reservation from 14 to 27% in the Madhya Pradesh civil services. So this decision has been taken by the Honorable High Court in line with the other cases where the OBC reservation increase has been challenged, and the court has given a stay order to the states on the same. This was held in the case of Satyendra Singh Bhaduria versus a state of Madhya Pradesh and others. Secondly, life sentence means imprisonment till last breath, and the court cannot really fix a period of incarceration of life conflict, as has been held by the Allahabad High Court in the case of Phul Singh and another versus state of UP and connected appeals. So as we know that life imprisonment is many a times confused with maybe, an imprisonment for 14 years, 21 years, but it has again been reiterated here that the Allahabad High Court has clarified that the meaning of life imprisonment, stating that fixing a term defeats the purpose of life imprisonment. It would substantially mean that it is imprisonment till the last breath. The same was done during the hearing of a case of 5 murder convicts sentenced for life by the trial court back in 1997 as well. So this was all for the day. If you liked it, please like this session, and also you may subscribe to our channel. Also, if you wish to download the PDF of today's slides, you can join our Telegram channel. The link is there in the description box below. Thank you so much.